My name's Olivia Jacobs. I am a self-taught landscape and travel photographer. There's one face. My name's Olivia Jacobs. I am a self-taught landscape and travel photographer. I have been capturing life's beautiful moments for 10 years now. I have over 30 limited editions and 5 of them have sold out already. My work is collected in many countries and was on exhibit in Argentina in 2025. Now, don't be afraid by the term self-taught. I come from a family of artists. I have been surrounded by art my entire life. My dad is a world-renowned photorealist artist and has been photographing his photo research ever since I was practically in diapers. If I could go back in time, these are the 3 tips that I would want to know getting into photography. Is that okay? Okay. Number 1 is starting with an entry-level camera. I started with a Canon Rebel T6i, and I think I used that for like 3 years. You can get away with an entry-level body for a very long time as long as you have a quality lens, and I will get into that in just a second. Number 2, this is the big one. This is where I think you need to spend most of your time understanding what's called the exposure triangle or trinity. That is your shutter, your aperture, and your ISO. Those 3 play into each other, but understanding each one first is a great way to get started in it. What I did is I started in Canon's version. I don't know all the terms in like Sony and Nikon, but in Canon it's called AV. And AV means aperture priority. And that is where your camera only adjusts, you can manually adjust aperture. Everything else is on auto, but aperture is something that you tweak. And now I'm going to explain a little bit what aperture even is. Aperture is your depth of field. So the lower the number is, so it's called f-stop. So if you see like a cursive F on, I have a shirt, I have to tell this. I have a shirt that says what the F, and then it's got different, different lenses and the different settings underneath. And anybody in the real world, nobody understands what it is unless you're a photographer, because the F is like this little cursive guy. So the f-stop is how you measure your aperture. The lower the number, so like f2.8 or f1.8 nowadays, if you go down to the f2.8, it lets in more light into your lens, and it only focuses on like a small space in your camera. So if you're looking in the viewfinder, that's what I look in. I don't use my back screen as my eyeballs. I think that having my eye in the viewfinder and actually seeing it that way, it really helps me at least capture a quality photo rather than looking at a screen like an iPhone and kind of clicking it. I don't know, that's just me. But the f2.8, that lets in more light. What it also does is it brings the focal point to something smaller. So a lot of people who do portraits, they keep their f-stop lower so that the person is the only thing that's in focus and the background is blurry and very moody. I am an low f-stop slut for sure. I love bringing the viewer's attention to like one thing in my photo. And what that does is it creates a shallow depth of field because the focal point is so small and everything else is blurry behind it. The higher you go in the number, the smaller the lens or the smaller it is to let in light, and the more things are in focus. A high f-stop is great for landscapes and anything, or even like a big group, like at a wedding and you want to capture everyone in the photo. You want the wedding goers to all be in focus. You want the environment and the atmosphere to be captured rather than a small moment in that scene. So your shutter in that situation, the more light it lets in, the faster it will be. So the lower your f-stop is in a very low lit environment, that's better than having it at like f8 or f16 because it's letting in such a little amount of light. Your shutter is going to have to be open longer to compensate for it. So shutter, I'm not a huge blur person because I'm capturing landscapes and musicians, and like people in their work environment, and I don't want blur in that. If I was doing maybe sports photography, that might be a great way to create motion by having my shutter open longer to allow for blur and movement like that. I hardly ever shoot below 1/200th of a second. It's all in fractions, so 1/blank. So the faster or the bigger the number on the bottom, 1/5000th of a second, that's a very fast shutter. So that's great for if you're capturing, a race car or you want to get a bird in flight, that type of thing. The next thing, the third of this trinity, is ISO. And that is just light sensitivity for your camera. I try my hardest to keep my ISO below 400. That's just my personal preference. But if you can, keep it at 100, because that is the crispest, cleanest photo that you can get with your camera. If you're in a low lit environment, like when I'm shooting at the gallery at night during our music series, my ISO I think is at 1,000 or maybe 1,400. And that's getting high for me. So how to explain that? What it does is it lets in more light, but it also opens your photos up to being noisier. Nowadays we have all the software in Lightroom Classic that allows you to denoise, and it works great. I've done it when I photographed the Hall of Fame induction. The lighting there is terrible, so bad, so bad. And I have to bump my ISO up way higher than I want to in any environment, but I don't have a flash. So I have to bump it up in some way to capture the moments without lowering my shutter. So understanding each one at a time is a great way to get started. So I started in Aperture, which was AV. Then I moved into Shutter, TV. Shutter was easier to understand just because, it makes sense. It's, the smaller the number, the fraction. Actually, technically, it's a bigger fraction because 1/10, get it? So like the larger the fraction, so 1/10 is going to mean that the shutter is open longer. I'm gonna stop there with the Trinity, the three, the Aperture, Shutter, and ISO, because there's so much to it and how they play into each other. But if you're just getting into photography, this is a great way to just understand each one. Shutter, creates motion. Aperture has that depth of field, whether it's shallow with the blurry background or a deep depth of field where everything is crystal clear. And then ISO is just light sensitivity and helping you in a dim lit environment. Shooting in manual mode is the best way to get quality photos. I like to use the analogy of driving a stick shift versus an automatic car. An automatic does whatever it wants, it shifts when it wants, but a manual shifts when you decide. So you get to control the RPMs and the power of the actual engine, and that applies directly into manual mode in a camera. You're telling it, this is the f-stop I want you to shoot at, this is the shutter speed that I want, and this is the ISO that I've set. So the camera now just has to work with whatever you've set up. Another tip that I heard from somebody is to shoot the same subject for 24 hours and just in different lighting, mess with the settings, and try to understand how to capture, it might be your water bottle or your pet fish, like whatever it is. Throughout the day, the lighting changes. There's artificial lighting, natural lighting, shadows, everything. If you're able to comfortably and confidently shoot that subject in the way that you want every time throughout the day, then you are ready for number 3. Number 3 is investing in a lens, not a camera body. Lenses can do so much. I photographed with my Rebel T6i for at least 3 years, probably more. And the first thing I did is I bought my 24-70, which I'm still shooting with. I use this lens, I'd say 95% of the time. It's amazing for, they call it the everyday lens. It's a 24-70 f2.8. I have it on my mirrorless, my R6 Mark II. So I have the little adapter on here, but if you have invested in camera lenses and you go to mirrorless, they have this wonderful adapter where you don't need to spend thousands of more dollars on the same lens with a different mount. You can get away with shooting on an entry-level camera for years like I did. That's why I think the best thing you can do is buy a quality lens with great glass, maybe even an image stabilizer inside the lens, like my 70-200 f2.8. It actually has the ability to stabilize your photos inside the lens, so you don't necessarily need a tripod. That lens was probably close to $3,000, but I don't know, if you're into it and it makes you happy or you can sell prints, do it. Hope that was helpful. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. I hope that this was helpful if you're interested in getting in photography. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions regarding photography, leave it down in the comments and I will see you next time.